Welcome to the California Maverick, a channel fighting for a free and sane California. So Governor Newsom's redistricting special election in November 2025 is making headlines all over the country. I've covered it myself, but it's actually illegal and shouldn't even be taking place, and no one's covering it. Even more, the California legislature's secretive approach to drawing the maps may just be unconstitutional. Stick around because we got a lot to get into. Okay, so like I said in the intro, the California special election in November of this year shouldn't even be taking place. It's actually illegal. We're going to set aside all the information that's already out there. The whataboutisms about Texas and Governor Greg Abbott and the fact that the Department of Justice told them to redistrict because of racial gerrymandering. We're going to set aside the fact that he wants to ignore the will of the California voter and also change the California Constitution. But we are going to talk about the lack of transparency and the rush timeline. And we all know he's rushing the timeline because he has to get these maps and get it in before January and February so candidates can submit their paperwork for the general election. And we're also going to table the fact that this rushed timeline banks on a low turnout and low information voters falling for the manipulative language on the voter guides. What's really important about this timeline that makes this whole thing illegal is the California Election Code. California Elections Code Section 9040, which governs how measures proposed by the state legislature are placed on the ballot for voter approval. This section specifies that any measure must appear on the ballot for the first statewide election that occurs at least 131 days after the legislature adopts the proposal. So what does that mean? Put simply, this election or any first statewide election must take place 131 days after the legislative measure or measures are proposed. So for example, using this special election that Governor Newsom and California Democrat politicians are proposing, since it's set to take place on November 4th, 2025, the adoption deadline of the legislative measure should be June 26, 2025, 131 days prior. Any measure adopted after that date could not legally appear on a ballot under the current law. This legislative measure was proposed sometime in August of this year, slightly over 80 days. Now, this doesn't apply to ballot initiatives, but this isn't a ballot initiative. Ballot initiatives are citizen-led, meaning petitions that garner enough signatures to be put up to a vote. Even if it's a special election, the governor still must abide by the 131-day rule. And the only way for this to not be illegal and not violate the California Elections Code is to basically amend Section 9040. They would have to ram through a bill to the state assembly and the state senate that would effectively shorten or waive the 131-day rule. And if you didn't know, California Democrat politicians and Gavin Newsom have already started redrawing the map.
Legislature will have 5 days to basically set the election. When will the maps be released to give the public ample time to at least review them? Well,
that's a question for all of our folks here, but bottom line, it's going to be in their ballot box. It's going to be on their ballot. So it's about as transparent as it gets. I have not been privy to the map. I'm mapping out a strategy to make this successful. I have not looked at any maps. I told you that yesterday, told you that last week, and that continues to be the case today. As it relates to that map and that process that's going through, by the way, it's very transparent because these are familiar maps. The independent redistricting has taken over 10,000 hours of testimony and public comment over the years, and they've bandied about many of these maps that have been seen before. So it's a very familiar process. It's not a very complicated process. It may appear to be, but it's not. But the process we want to make very transparent, and that's the idea of putting the maps on the ballot. And that was something for me was a red line, and it's something that I think is foundational in terms of this effort.
So does it not matter what people think, though, in the 5 days that the legislature has the time? I mean, this is for really legislative leaders. Is 5 days an adequate enough time for the public to review what you will present to them on the ballot?
So I can tell you this, Ashley, that maps we anticipate will be available next week. Our work began with the work that was already done, as the governor just mentioned, by our independent redistricting commission. Once these maps are released, voters will have the opportunity to digest these maps, review them for weeks and months leading to this election. If there is another state with a more transparent process where voters will get the ultimate say in these new maps. Please let me know what it is, or if there's a state doing it, because we are going above and beyond to ensure that, one, we are protecting the Voting Rights Act, and that we are sending the voices of our most vulnerable to Washington, D.C. But when it comes to the maps, we anticipate these maps to be available next week.
I dare you to take a shot for every time they mention transparency or transparent in this clip. The amount of gaslighting is crazy. It hasn't been transparent. They know it's not transparent, but they sit there and try to convince you that it's transparent by telling you over and over again, this is the most transparent process in the country. Tell me another state that is as transparent as we are. And based on Gavin Newsom's track record, unless you're a vote blue no matter who, Democrat shill, you know he's lying, and he's very much involved in these backdoor secret map drawing meetings, which is also a clear violation of the California Constitution. The California Constitution specifically says that the redistricting map shall be conducted in an open and transparent process, enabling full public consideration of and comment on the drawing of district lines. Drawing district lines according to the redistricting criteria specified in this article, and conduct themselves with integrity and fairness. Which we all know that's a load of BS. Integrity and fairness is not part of the California Democrat motto. I would say it's the exact opposite. And nothing about this process has been open and transparent, regardless of what they tell you. The Constitution also goes further and says each commission member shall apply this article in a manner that is impartial and that reinforces public confidence in the integrity of the redistricting process. But we all know it's not impartial, and so far it doesn't reinforce public confidence. Number one, they've openly admitted that they want to remove Republican seats in an already underrepresented Republican state. As mentioned before, and also in a previous video, 40% of Californians are Republican. 40% of Californians voted for President Trump, but only 19% are represented in the California legislature. And they keep saying that this is transparent and they're going to show you the map, but it has yet to be released. And this election is going to take place in about 7 or 8 weeks. Even though it's on November 4th, they're going to need to send the ballots out, the mass mail-in ballots, in about 7 to 8 weeks. That's not enough time to reinforce public confidence in the integrity of the redistricting process, especially if they're not even showing you how they're doing it. They're supposed to release the map this Friday so everyone can see it. I'm not holding my breath.
Well, let's just be clear about California, because California is the worst offender. Right now, we have a massively gerrymandered system in California. The Democrats hijacked what the people voted for, which was independent redistricting. They corrupted that process to gerrymander the maps. And so right now, if we had fair representation in California for the 40% Republican vote that there is very steadily in California, we would have an extra 12 House seats in California, 12. And so when they talk about fighting fire with fire and all the rest of it, to what exactly as Stephen Miller said, if you just take what Texas is doing, it doesn't even get you halfway towards correcting the gerrymandering that Gavin Newsom and his cronies have done in California. And let's just be clear about something. Why is Gavin Newsom doing this? He said very clearly that he's doing this to, quote, end the Trump presidency. That's what it's about. It's not about Texas. It's about Gavin Newsom trying to show that he's the one that flips the House so they can impeach President Trump. And this week, I announced that I will not let him do it. I commissioned a legal opinion. I laid out the details this week in Sacramento. If Gavin Newsom goes ahead with his illegal and unconstitutional scheme, I will file a lawsuit in state and federal court to block him, and I'm very confident we'll win.
If you like this video, leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.